Winter is coming. We have 5 action items for you to tackle to make sure your home is ready for winter. Hey, Provident Preppers, I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Kylene, and right now is the perfect time to take some really important steps and prepare your home for winter. You might think that this is only for those who live in the northern areas, but quite frankly, the polar vortex that occurred in Texas and the surrounding area shows us that all of us should be prepared for winter, because it doesn't just happen in select areas, and it's actually more dangerous when it happens to those who are unaccustomed. Not only is this good for emergencies, but this is good for everyday life, increasing your energy conservation as well as your level of comfort.
Number 1, let's start at the top of the house, talking about your roof. Regardless of what kind of material you have up there, is it in good condition and ready to go through a winter without problems?
Water is so damaging. And so even if you can't afford to replace your roof, make sure that you repair and do whatever you can do to make sure that you stay dry.
And the roof is the first place to start.
Number 2 is your furnace. And let me tell you why John wants to make sure that our furnace is working. And that is because I am not a nice person when I am cold.
This all starts with making sure that your furnace is in good repair, that it's operating properly. Sometimes you need to have a professional come in and check that out. But at the very least, we need to change the filter, and we need to make sure that the vents and chimneys are working well. Mama, why don't you tell them about our friends?
So we have some friends that almost died due to carbon monoxide poisoning. They lived in a sweet little old house. A bird had made a nest in their, is it still a chimney? It's a vent.
A vent.
They came home and they just started feeling like flu-like symptoms. He went away for work for the day, right? But she was still there. And she was super sick, and she had vomited on herself and just was totally out of it. And the only reason why she is still alive is because I think it was her mom that kept calling and nobody was answering. And so they drove out to see what was going on, and they found her in this mess. And seriously, she would have died if they hadn't have gotten help soon. And she didn't realize what was happening because she just felt sick and miserable, and then when it sets in, then you can't think straight. So just by making sure that all of your vents are clean, there's no obstructions, there's no birds or mice or anything making little nests in them, that is super helpful. And then chimney fires, we have a friend, one of my friends at work, his house burnt down and he lost everything due to a chimney fire. So if you are going to be using your fireplace or any type of a wood burning stove, make sure that you take a little bit of extra time and clean those chimneys, or hire somebody to come and do that.
I should mention that filters are very inexpensive. Make sure that you're changing them often. It makes your heating system work so much better, and it prevents problems down the road. So now let's move along to number 3, windows, doors, and insulation. Now these are the things that really help keep us warm, that keep the cold out and the warmth in. Windows, make sure that there's no leaks around the sides of your windows. Make sure that they are sealing up tight and that they're in good repair.
One of the things that sometimes we forget about windows, they do let in an awful lot of cold. So if you have some good insulating blinds or curtains or something like that, you can help to keep that warm air in and that cold air out a lot better.
A window has an R value, which is resistance to heat transfer, of about 1. Even the very best ones are only about 2. Now your walls are typically 13 to 19, so the windows really are a weak spot. So make sure you do what you can to insulate and make them less likely to make you cold.
In our experiment where we turned off the heat for that while, I had this great idea about putting cardboard in the windows to help insulate them so that we would stay warm. And it worked really well, but it made the house very, very dark. So understand that when you're using these blinds and even if it's a blanket or something that you are putting over that window, it's gonna make your home dark, and you're gonna need to make sure you have safe alternative lighting.
Now let's move along to doors. Just like windows, doors sometimes have problems and they start leaking cold air. Ours was because of cats. The cats decided they needed to sharpen their claws on our door seal, and it just shredded it, which provided little air gaps for lots of cold air to come in. So most doors these days are very easy to change out this seal. You just pull out the old one and you measure and cut. They come in full-length pieces that you can just slide right back in that gap, and then your doors will seal much, much better.
And I'll have to say something though, because he just put all these new ones in, now it's a little bit harder to close the door, and that will remedy itself over the next few months. But now I have to make sure that I close it and I lock it so that it stays nice and tight.
And how about insulation? There's a couple of things that you want to take a look at. There's a website called dsireusa.org, and this is a database of all the incentives out there, state, federal, local utilities. Go to that website and see what options you have. There may be some really good helps available for you to get insulation, windows, doors. There's also low-income programs that can provide some of these same things. So check those out, and check for cold air gaps. I lived in a house once where if you pulled off the switch cover plate or the electrical plug plate, there was a breeze coming in, a river of cold air. These things can be fixed fairly easily, just with a little bit of spray foam, maybe some caulk, some other kinds of insulation that will help reduce that airflow and keep your home a lot warmer.
Number 4 is to look at your risk of freezing, especially freezing pipes. In fact, we created an entire video on that one because it's so important. Your house can flood. You've got to make sure that you take care of your pipes so that they're not going to freeze.
And there's very simple fixes a lot of times that you can do. This is some fiberglass insulation that you can wrap your pipes with. I prefer this foam insulation that you can put on pipes. I like the passive things like these insulations better than the heat tapes, because there's just less to go wrong. So if you can do it with passive methods, I think it's much, much better, but you just don't want to have any problems with freezing pipes.
And if you're using the heat tape, think about this. Your biggest risk is actually when your power's out, and that's not going to help you then. So This is a really good idea. Okay, number 5, smoke and carbon monoxide detectors.
We talked about our friends who almost died. With a carbon monoxide detector, it would have notified them very quickly that there's a problem, you got to get it fixed. Most fire departments will come out very quickly if you call them and say, I've got carbon monoxide and I don't know where. They've got sniffers that will go through and they can find where that is happening. These, we just can't emphasize enough the need for those. Make sure that you've got fresh batteries in them and that they're working properly. They will save your life.
We actually have a sweet neighbor who loves to make salsa, and for some reason, every time she made salsa, her carbon monoxide detector would end up going off later that night. And the firemen, they come out right away. One of the things that we did for her as a neighbor gift was just to buy her one of these, because she had detectors that go up in your ceiling, but they don't go off until you've reached a certain threshold. But having one of these little ones with the digital readout so that you can see if you've got any carbon monoxide building up, then you can take care of that before it becomes a problem and it's going off and you've got the firemen there and you have no clue why it's going off. These are super fantastic to have. Don't poo-poo that. Make sure that you have these in your home.
So there you have it. There's our 5 action items that we hope that you will take. Most of these are fairly inexpensive to remedy if you've got problems, but most of all, we just need to get it done. As Mama mentioned up front, it's not just for the emergencies. It saves you money all year long. It increases your comfort, and it makes your home resilient so that whatever may come, your home will protect you as best it can. And now for the question of the day. What is on your to-do list so that you can prepare for cold weather ahead? Share with us. And thanks for being part of the solution.